Kurtop here, and these are the 100 most terrifying artifacts found by archaeologists. Flying Tic Tac. A UFO has been found on Mars again. At least that's what social media users decided when they saw a strange photo taken by a NASA rover. A smooth cylindrical object similar to the famous Tic Tac candy appeared in the frame among the rocks and dust. The play of light and shadows made it even more mysterious. It seems as if it is hovering above the surface. This photo was not taken yesterday. It was taken by the Curiosity rover back in 2020 during the search for traces of ancient life. But attention to it only flared up now when one of the Reddit users posted a photo with the caption "Tic Tac on Mars." And then it all started. Some even compared it to the same UFO that U.S. Navy pilot David Fravor observed over the Pacific Ocean in 2004. Then the pilot described a perfectly white object without wings or windows, shaped like a Tic Tac, that was moving at incredible speed and suddenly disappeared from radar. But if we return to Mars, it is most likely just an unusual stone. It seems to be flying due to the peculiarities of the shooting and shadows. Eerie discovery under the floor. An ordinary day for Amelia turned into a real investigation. She noticed that one of the floorboards in her house was loose and decided to lift it to find out the reason. However, instead of a simple breakage, strange objects were found under the board. An old coin from 1904 and a small golden book. Opening the book, she discovered that the pages were unusually thick. Inside were old photographs, creepy images of the house, dark shadows in empty rooms, and mysterious portraits. Perhaps the house holds dark secrets of the past, or maybe the photographs have simply aged. However, Amelia herself was seriously scared by the discovery. She admitted that since then she has felt anxious and wants to know what other secrets her house is hiding. An ordinary stone hid a very important secret. During excavations in the south of Spain, archaeologists found an artifact that could change our understanding of prehistoric Europe. We are talking about a stone with ancient carvings discovered in the Marbella area. According to preliminary estimates, it is more than 200,000 years old. If the age is confirmed, it will be one of the oldest known symbolic images found in Europe, almost 100,000 years older than the famous cave paintings of Spain. The discovery was made at the Coto Correa site. It has long been known to archaeologists since the 50s of the last century. Stone tools were previously found there, but an engraved piece of gabbro rock became a real sensation. Several lines cut on its surface may indicate the first manifestations of symbolic thinking in ancient man. Hidden essence. This unique Mayan clay figure was found in the Petén region of Guatemala and dates back to the Classic period. The figure is seated in a pose of deep contemplation or ritual gesture, with open palms symbolizing an offering or appeal to the gods. On his head is a mask that evokes associations with modern helmets or even spacesuits, making this artifact the subject of much speculation. The mask could symbolize a connection with the other world or be part of a ceremonial costume designed to imitate gods or spirits. However, some researchers see references to extraterrestrial contacts in its unusualness. Mayan legends often mention sky people who brought knowledge from other worlds, and such iconography could be a symbolic representation of these traditions. The figure also has decorations, a massive medallion and bracelets, which indicates the high status of the person depicted. Perhaps this was the figure of a priest or shaman performing an important ritual role. The Indian Titanic. The merchant ship SS Talawa was sunk on November 20, 1942, by a Japanese submarine in the Indian Ocean, 1,200 kilometers from the Seychelles. There were 958 people on board, including 732 passengers. The liner, which left Mumbai for Durban, was hit by 2 torpedoes and sank at a depth of more than 4,500 meters. Due to a shortage of lifeboats, 280 people died. The rest were rescued by ships of the British fleet. SS Talawa, nicknamed the Indian Titanic, was carrying a valuable cargo, 60 tons of silver intended for minting coins in the Union of South Africa. The value of the silver is estimated at $40 million, and the fate of this cargo remained unknown for almost 75 years. As a result of the deep-sea mission, the Argentum crew successfully raised almost all of the 2391 silver bars stored in the hold. The valuable metal was found in the ship's opium compartment. However, the ownership of the cargo was disputed, and the case went all the way to the UK Supreme Court. In 2023, the court ruled that the silver, worth $43 million, belonged to South Africa. 2 passengers from the ship are still alive today, Elvin Yani and Tej Prakash Mangat. Every year they gather for a reunion to honor the survivors. $2 billion for silence about aliens. The famous ufologist Stephen Greer is again in the spotlight. He said he received a generous offer from a high-ranking U.S. government official, a man he calls one of the leading UFO experts. According to Greer, he was offered a huge sum to just shut up. Greer founded the Center for the Study of Extraterrestrial Intelligence back in 1990. In recent years, he has repeatedly claimed to have had contact with aliens and to be running covert government operations. His reputation is controversial even among ufologists. Some see him as a bold whistleblower, while others see him as a fanatic without evidence. He said that in 1992, General Albert Stubblebine, the former head of U.S. military intelligence, allegedly personally offered him $2 billion to give up public activity. At the time, Greer was in his early 30s, a young doctor, and according to him, he seriously considered it, but refused. He believes it is all part of a larger disinformation operation involving the CIA and other intelligence agencies. The host of the podcast where the story was told expressed doubt, calling it hard to believe. But Greer insists he is willing to take a lie detector test and his wife can confirm everything he said. However, General Stubblebine died in 2017 and can no longer refute or confirm the story. The world's oldest runestone. Archaeologists in Norway have made a sensational discovery, possibly the oldest known runestone. Sandstone fragments with runes carved into them were found in separate graves at the ancient cemetery of Svingerud. Researchers have discovered that the pieces fit together like a puzzle, forming a single stone with a unique engraving. Runes are ancient letters used to write Germanic languages before the transition to the Latin alphabet. The origin of runic writing remains a subject of debate, but early alphabets were used before 700 AD. Dating the stone using radiocarbon analysis showed that it is between 50 BC and 275 AD, making it the oldest known runic monument. What is special about the find is that the inscriptions on the stone are an unusual mixture of runes and unknown symbols. The carvings may have been made by different people at different times, and the stone itself may have been reused. Researchers believe that it originally served as a memorial marker for one grave, but was later broken and redistributed among other burials. Golden tongues and images of the gods. Archaeologists from Egypt's Ministry of Tourism and Antiquities have uncovered an astonishing collection of artifacts during excavations at Tel el-Deir. The site has enriched Egypt's history with 63 mud brick tombs and other simple burials. The team uncovered a variety of artifacts, including gold foil pieces depicting gods such as Isis, Bastet, and Horus, as well as protective symbols and languages that allowed the deceased to speak before the court of Osiris in the afterlife. These foil fragments stand out for their craftsmanship and the variety of materials used. Numerous funerary offerings were also found, including amulets, Ushabti statues, figurines, coins, and a mirror, illustrating the burial customs of the 26th dynasty. Among the finds was a ceramic vessel containing 38 bronze coins from the Ptolemaic era depicting the head of Zeus Ammon. These coins, dated to the late 3rd century BC, may have been buried during a major revolt against the Ptolemaic dynasty around 206 BC. Heavenly stones. Among the vast number of meteorites that have fallen to Earth over billions of years, skystone, with its bluish tint and unusual oxygen-rich composition, is of particular interest to scientists. This space fragment, discovered in West Africa in Sierra Leone by archaeologist and geologist Angelo Pittoni in 1990, is shrouded in legends. Local residents believe that these stones were former celestial beings turned into stones for their sins and dropped to Earth. Tests carried out in laboratories in Rome, Germany, and Tokyo showed that the stone consists of 77% oxygen, 20% carbon and lime, and also contains traces of silicon and other materials. This composition was recognized as unique and unlike other terrestrial samples, indicating the extraterrestrial origin of the stone. Carbon dating has shown that the skystone ended up on Earth between 2,500 and 17,000 years ago, becoming the object of a collector's hunt. Along with skystone, the Hypatia stone found in Libya is no less a mystery for scientists. Its chemical composition is different from anything found on Earth or in space. Hypatia is material formed before the formation of our solar system. Thus, skystone and Hypatia stone continue to attract researchers with their mystery and unique composition. Would you like to own one of these stones? Frog or jade birthing woman. Archaeologists have presented the first results of excavations at the Svinjarika Kuka site in southern Serbia, and they are truly impressive. This site, located in the South Morava River basin, has become a real window into the past. The remains of settlements that are about 8,000 years old were discovered here. The earliest finds date back to the early and middle Neolithic period, approximately 6,100, 5,500 BC. Among the many artifacts, a small jade pendant resembling a frog or a figure in the position of a woman giving birth attracted special attention. It was found near one of the ancient houses. It weighs only a few grams, is no larger than a matchbox, but its significance is enormous. Jade is not found in these parts, and its closest source is southern Bulgaria, which speaks of the complex connections between ancient communities. In addition to the jade figurine, the researchers found 115 clay figurines and the remains of buildings indicating permanent residence, not temporary camps. People returned here later in the Bronze and Iron Ages. One Bronze Age burial surprised even experienced archaeologists. A man with more than 30 gold beads was buried in a stone box. Such luxury is unusual for the region and may be associated with the cultures of the lower Danube. Black granite slab. Heracleon, once one of the greatest ports of ancient Egypt, disappeared under the sea after a devastating earthquake in the 1st century BC. Its existence was long considered a myth until French archaeologist Franck Godot discovered the lost city in the early 2000s in Abu Qir Bay, off the modern coast of Egypt. The most striking find was a massive black granite slab on which the name of the city and details of its connection with the ancient Egyptian gods were carved. Along with the slab, archaeologists found dozens of sunken ships, remarkably well-preserved statues, temples, and many artifacts, including jewelry, coins, and personal belongings of residents. Excavations are ongoing, and each discovered object sheds light on the role of Heracleon as a vital center of trade and religious life. The city, submerged in the sea abyss, remains a reminder of how natural disasters can forever change the course of history. Excavations at the imperial residence. Recent excavations at the legendary Golden House of Nero, Domus Aurea, in Rome have yielded an important discovery. Archaeologists have found a rare Egyptian blue pigment, one of the most expensive and technologically sophisticated dyes of antiquity. This discovery not only reveals details of the luxury in which the emperor lived, but also says a lot about the advanced artistic practices of ancient Rome. Domus Aurea was built in the 1st century AD after a fire destroyed most of the city. This palace became the embodiment of imperial power with marble halls, artificial lakes, and frescoes created by the famous artist Famulus. At the site of the former workshops, archaeologists have discovered vessels with pigments, among which a massive ingot of Egyptian blue weighing 2.2 kilograms stands out. This pigment was produced using a complex technology. A mixture of copper, limestone, and sand was fired at a temperature of about 900 degrees Celsius. The recipe was described by Vitruvius, a Roman architect and theorist. Blue was considered a symbol of divinity and eternity, and its use emphasized the high status of the customer. Interestingly, Egyptian blue was also used during the Renaissance. There is reason to believe that masters, including Raphael himself, were inspired by ancient recipes. Thus, the pigment from Nero's palace became a kind of bridge between antiquity and the art of the 16th century. People of an unknown civilization. In the tropical forests of Brazil, in the state of Rondônia, archaeologists have recorded rare footage of people from the isolated Masaco tribe. This tribe, discovered in the 1990s, categorically avoids contact with the outside world and carefully guards its lands, setting up deadly traps made of wooden spikes. These spikes are so strong that they can puncture tractor tires. The Masaco are one of 28 tribes in the Amazon that are completely cut off from civilization. Scientists have installed cameras in the jungle to study them without invading them. Researcher Algair has been monitoring the tribe since 1992, and thanks to his work, it has been possible to stop deforestation in their territory. Early attempts to contact isolated peoples often ended tragically due to outbreaks of disease. Therefore, the Masako rejected any offerings, tools, utensils, weapons. They left only sharp thorns at the meeting places, warning strangers that the invasion was undesirable. After the end of contacts and the protection of their lands, the tribe's population increased. In the 90s, about 90 people lived here. Now, 200, 250. Scientists have made maps of their paths and camps, recorded their nomadic farming techniques on satellites. The tribe burns down the savanna and then moves there during the rainy season. The Masako differ from other tribes in their long bows, up to 3 meters. Anthropologists still do not understand how they shoot from them. Their language is unique and not understood even by other indigenous peoples. Researchers note the number of Masako is growing, which means that sooner or later they will encounter civilization. But history shows that such contacts rarely end well. Tomb of the legendary military leader Ramses III. Archaeologists have made an interesting discovery in Egypt. An ancient tomb dating back about 3,200 years was discovered in the northeast of the country. It could have belonged to a high-ranking military leader during the reign of Ramses III. The main piece of evidence is a gold ring engraved with the name of the pharaoh himself found inside the tomb. The tomb is built of mud brick and includes a main burial chamber, as well as 3 additional rooms. Judging by the architecture and objects found inside, this place was intended for an important person closely associated with military affairs. Among the artifacts are arrowheads, vessels with inscriptions, an ivory box, and other household and status items. Particular attention was drawn to the inscriptions mentioning the name of Horemheb, a famous military leader and later pharaoh who ruled several decades before Ramses III. This may mean that the tomb was built during his reign and then reused later, a practice that was quite common in ancient Egypt. 2,000-year-old fig. Irish archaeologists have made a surprising discovery when they found the charred remains of a 2,000-year-old fig tree on Drumnach Point north of Dublin. The find is important evidence that the Roman Empire, which once considered Ireland untouchable, did have an impact on its culture. Drumnach Point was a key point of contact between Ireland and Roman-ruled England. The fig was the most surprising of the finds made by researchers from University College Dublin. The seeds of the fruit confirm that it was brought to the island at a time when such exotic fruits were considered rare. Figs had previously only been found in medieval strata in Ireland, but this is the oldest known. As well as the figs, traces of spelt were found, a grain widely consumed in Roman Britain but rare in Ireland. The finds show that the Romans not only traded goods but also transferred lifestyles. Archaeologist Christine Baker said that the people of Ireland at the time enjoyed spelt bread, olive oil, wine in used glass, and ceramic dishes, brooches, and beads. Figs, first grown in eastern Turkey and northern India, were carried by ancient trade routes to the Mediterranean, where they became an important part of the Roman diet. Researchers believe that figs and spelt may have been brought through Roman Chester, a major trading post in Britain. Unique round burials. In December 2023, archaeologists from the Museum of Cultural History discovered a unique burial of infants in a quarry near Fredrikstad, Norway. Most of the 41 graves contain cremated remains of infants, a rarity for the period 800-200 BC. Scientists determined the age of those buried by thin fragments of cranial bones characteristic of infants. Each grave was surrounded by stone circles, and the remains were placed in urns or directly under the stones. Interestingly, cooking pits and fire pits were found near the graves, indicating rituals and gatherings associated with burials. The site may have been a meeting place for an ancient community where people mourned the loss of children. Mass graves of children are rare in archaeology. This discovery provides insight into the attitudes of ancient communities towards children, showing that they were an important part of society. And even thousands of years ago, people had great difficulty coping with the loss of their children. Smaller than a hobbit. Scientists have made an amazing discovery. In South Africa, they found the remains of the shortest ancient man known to science. We are talking about a representative of the species Paranthropus robustus, who lived about 2 million years ago. He was less than a meter tall and weighed about 27 kilograms, which makes him even shorter than the famous hobbits, Homo floresiensis. The unique remains were found in the Swartkrans cave. Archaeologists discovered articulated bones of the femur, shin, and pelvis. Everything indicates that this is an adult individual, probably a woman. Despite her tiny size, according to researchers, she had a developed brain for her time and perhaps knew how to make simple stone and bone tools. Paranthropus robustus is a side branch on the tree of human evolution. They had a powerful skull, strong jaws, and teeth adapted to rough plant food. They were not direct ancestors of Homo sapiens, but they lived with them at the same time and shared the same landscapes. Interestingly, the discovery has greatly changed the ideas about the variability of this species. Previously, it was believed that Paranthropus were larger, but now it becomes clear that within a single species, there could be noticeable differences in height and build, perhaps due to gender, climate, or living conditions. Sistine Chapel of Ancient Egypt. Here is one of the most stunning tombs of ancient Egypt, the tomb of Queen Nefertari, wife of Ramses II. It is over 3,200 years old and is often called the Sistine Chapel of Egypt because of its incredible paintings. Unlike many other tombs, this one amazes not only with its scale, but also with its bright, almost untouched colors. On the walls are scenes from the Book of the Dead, images of gods and Nefertari herself going to the afterlife. The Egyptians believed that such paintings would help the deceased pass the trials and achieve eternal life. The detail is amazing. Fine lines, intricate patterns, vivid colors, all this makes the tomb a real masterpiece. Unfortunately, many sections of the walls have been damaged by time, but restorers have managed to preserve its grandeur. Today, this tomb is considered one of the most beautiful in the Valley of the Queens and a true window into the world of ancient Egyptian art. One of a kind. Not far from the settlement of Loth on the Swedish island of Åland, a rare artifact was found, a Viking Age bracelet, which is over 1,000 years old. During the Viking Age, Åland was an important craft and trade center, actively interacting with the regions of the southern and eastern Baltic Sea. The bracelet was discovered by a private individual in a swampy area. According to experts, the find is unique. Most jewelry of that time was made of silver or bronze, while this example is made of iron, an extremely rare material for this type of product. According to the State Historical Museum, out of more than 1,000 bracelets found, only 3 were iron. However, the artifact found on Åland has no direct analogs. The ends of the bracelet depict animal heads, and along its entire length there are rows of dots laid out in a complex pattern. Thanks to the low oxygen content in the swampy soil, the bracelet has been preserved in excellent condition. The researchers suggest that the swamp could have been a site for ritual offerings and plan to continue excavations using metal detectors. Egyptian sarcophagus and the Simpsons. Archaeologists have discovered something unique in an Egyptian tomb, a 3,500-year-old sarcophagus depicting Marge Simpson from the popular modern animated series. The lid of the sarcophagus depicts a yellow-skinned woman wearing a green dress and a blue crown, reminiscent of Marge's famous hairstyle. But in fact, the sarcophagus belongs to the New Kingdom and depicts the goddess Nut. The tomb belonged to a 16-year-old girl whose parents probably did not have much money. However, they tried to do everything possible for a dignified burial of their daughter. As for such a coincidence, there are 2 options. Either the Egyptians predicted The Simpsons, or the creator of the series, Matt Groening, has secret knowledge about ancient cultures. Also, amulets, jewelry, and stone and wooden sarcophagi were found in the tomb. New Kingdom sarcophagi were often decorated with carvings and paintings depicting the dead, deities, and scenes from the Book of the Dead. What do you think? Why was the coincidence so realistic? Write your opinion in the comments. Mysterious footprints. In 1978, footprints dating back 3.7 million years were found in Tanzania, providing some of the first evidence of upright walking in human ancestors. The discovery sparked a wave of interest in the history of hominins. Near this place, other tracks were found, which some scientists mistakenly mistook for bear tracks. A new study from Alison McNutt's team at Ohio University disproves this theory. The researchers returned to analyzing the tracks found at the Laetoli site, known for its hominin print chains. The tracks were believed to belong to Australopithecus afarensis, to which the famous Lucy skeleton belongs. An international team of scientists decided to solve the mystery by re-excavating and examining 5 footprints. Comparisons with prints from bears, chimpanzees, and humans showed that bears were unlikely to leave such tracks, given their mode of movement and stride width. Researchers observed the behavior of bears that were attracted to maple syrup or applesauce to walk on their hind legs. Observations have shown that bears rarely move in this manner, making the theory of a bear origin of the tracks unlikely. Analysis with chimpanzee tracks revealed similarities, but the morphology of the tracks indicated that they were made by a different species of Australopithecus, not Australopithecus afarensis. Thus, the study confirmed that the mysterious footprints in Laetoli belonged to human ancestors. The importance of the wheel. Modern civilization would look very different without the ancient invention of the wheel. The exact time and place of its invention are still a matter of debate. The wheel was probably invented independently by different civilizations at different times. The simplicity of the wheel suggests that it could have appeared even in cultures that did not seem to need it. The first evidence of the wheel dates back to 4,500 to 3,300 BC in Mesopotamia, where it was used in the form of a potter's wheel. Early transport wheels were made from solid planks of wood. Improvements in wheel design occurred around 2200 to 1550 BC in the Middle Bronze Age, when spoked wheels and chariots appeared. Nowadays, a wheel is necessary for almost all types of transport, not just land transport. Airplanes use wheels to take off and land, and most helicopters are also equipped with wheels. Even magnetic levitation maglev systems have folding wheels for slow movement. The wheel plays an important role not only in transport. Without gear wheels and gears, we might still be in the Dark Ages. Wolf Girl from India. Sometimes history gives rise to stories that are more like legends. One such story is the case of a wolf girl from India, which occurred in 1920. Deep in the jungles of Bihar district, two little girls were found living with wolves. The eldest of them was named Kamala and the youngest, Amala. According to witnesses, they ran on all fours, ate raw meat, and made sounds similar to wolf howls. The girls were discovered by priest Joseph Singh, who worked in an orphanage. Trying to integrate them into human society, he encountered a lot of problems. Kamala and Amala could not walk on two legs, did not understand human speech, and were completely unsocialized. Over time, thanks to the efforts of the priest and other guardians, the girls began to show signs of human behavior. However, the process of socialization was extremely slow, and unfortunately, Amala died a year after their discovery. Kamala lived for several more years, gradually mastering some aspects of human life. She learned to walk on two legs and speak a few words, but until the end of her life, she was never able to fully adapt to life among people. The story of the Wolf Girls remains one of the most mysterious in the annals of wildlife and human society. It raises questions about the nature of human personality, the influence of the environment on the formation of the individual, and the boundaries between humans and wildlife. Round, man-made object found at the bottom of the Sea of Galilee. In the depths of Lake Kinneret in Israel, a huge ball with a diameter of about 50 meters and an age of 4,000 years was discovered. Who, when, and why made it is still a mystery. Researchers from Tel Aviv University and Ariel University tirelessly try to unravel this mystery. They even offered a fresh hypothesis that could possibly explain the origin of this mysterious object. After a detailed study using sonar and analysis of bottom sediments, scientists determined that this giant ball, made from large fragments of basalt, is located at a depth of about 12 meters. Previously, scientists believed that this could be the biblical well of Miriam, the sister of the prophet Moses, who helped the Jews survive in the desert. But now researchers are proposing an entirely new idea. Remember the legend of Akkad, the great hunter with a magical bow who was killed by a jealous goddess? This legend says that the father searched for the body of his son for a long time, found it, and buried it in the sea. Not in any sea, but in the Sea of Galilee. Now scientists want to understand what is hidden inside this giant ball. To do this, they are going to conduct underwater research using an ultrasound machine. Extraterrestrial metal in ancient burials. Archaeologists have made a sensational discovery in Poland that changes our understanding of the technical capabilities of ancient societies. In two burials from the early Iron Age, dating back to 750–600 BC, researchers have found 4 artifacts, 3 bracelets, and a pin made of meteoric iron. The objects were found in Częstochowa, southern Poland, and had long been kept in a local museum. Only recently, with the help of modern technology, has their unique origin been established. An analysis of the metal's composition using X-ray scanning and electron microscopy showed that the iron contains high amounts of nickel and cobalt, characteristic of rare ataxic meteorites. Moreover, the ornaments on the bracelets were probably made using different types of iron, possibly to create a pattern. This may be the oldest example of patterned iron known to mankind. Meteoric iron is not just a material. In ancient times, it was often considered a heavenly gift and was used to create objects for special purposes. Similar finds can be found, for example, in the tomb of Tutankhamun in Egypt, where a dagger made of meteorite iron was found. And now there is confirmation that such technologies were known in Europe centuries before Rome. Scientists assume that the iron was probably mined locally, possibly after the observed meteorite fall. This confirms that the objects had not only practical but also ritual value. The oldest 3D map in the world. Archaeologists have discovered the oldest 3D map in the world, which is 13,000 years old. It was carved into quartz sandstone in the Ségonolé 3 cave shelter in France, and according to the researchers, is a schematic representation of the landscape of the Paris Basin. According to the analysis, the map shows the relief of the terrain with the designation of the directions of water flows, which was critical for the people of the late Paleolithic. According to anthropologist Anthony Milnes, for ancient people, knowledge of water flows was more important than modern concepts of distance and time. An important discovery was that Paleolithic people did not just record the landscape, but also deliberately changed it, creating artificial channels in the sandstone to manage the flow of rainwater. The creators of the map deliberately opened cracks in the stone to direct water through the settlement. This proves that already 13,000 years ago, people had an engineering mindset and a deep knowledge of hydrology. Archaeologists also suggest that the carved channels could have had mythological or ritual significance associated with water and ideas about nature and life.
We are pets on a giant farm. Humanity may not be the only intelligent species in the universe, but there is no evidence yet for the existence of alien life. One argument for their possible existence is the Drake equation, which suggests that there should be many extraterrestrial civilizations. Recently, a group of scientists modified this equation to include the number of exoplanets found and reduce the number of variables to 2, the number of habitable planets and the probability of intelligent life. The results showed that there could be billions of developed worlds, but the time frame for their existence was not taken into account. Astronomers from Columbia and Sydney universities have refined the equation, concluding that either the universe must be full of life or it is extremely rare. The Fermi paradox highlights this mystery. According to scientific evidence, intelligent life should exist, but we see no signs of it. One hypothesis that explains this paradox is the zoo hypothesis proposed by radio astronomer John Ball. He suggested that alien civilizations exist but deliberately avoid contact with humanity, observing us as exhibits in a zoo. They may want Earthlings to develop independently without outside interference. This approach is reminiscent of the situation with the Sentinelese, a people on an island in the Indian Ocean who refuse to contact the outside world, and others respect their choice. As in the case of the Sentinelese, alien civilizations may deliberately avoid interfering with our progress, observing our development from the outside. However, the zoo theory is subject to criticism. Some scientists believe that maintaining such a quarantine for millions of years is extremely difficult. Any single civilization could break these rules and make contact. Others argue that the moral principles of aliens may not coincide with ours, which makes the idea that they care about our development questionable. Peaceful people in America. The sacred city of Caral-Supe, located on a desert terrace in Peru, was discovered by archaeologists in 1948. This ancient city, estimated to be 5,000 years old, is recognized as one of the oldest in the Western Hemisphere and is considered the cradle of civilization in the Americas. The main architectural landmark of Caral is the Pyramid Mayor, almost 30 meters high and the size of 4 football fields.
Built around 2600 BC, it is comparable in age to the ancient pyramids of Egypt. Radiocarbon dating of organic materials confirms that Caral-Supe existed at the same time as the Egyptian pyramids. Artifacts found at Caral, such as the quipu, a system of knots used to store information, indicate a high level of development and influence on subsequent Andean civilizations. Architectural features, including pyramidal structures and elite residences, indicate a complex socio-political organization and a powerful religious ideology. The absence of traces of war, such as fortifications and weapons, indicates the peaceful nature of the society based on trade and pleasure. In 2009, Caral-Supe was designated a UNESCO World Heritage Site for its architectural heritage and influence on later Andean civilizations. Found remains will rewrite the history of the pyramids. An unusual archaeological discovery in one of the Egyptian pyramids has called into question the usual ideas about burials in ancient Egypt. Archaeologists have found skeletons of people whose bodies showed clear signs of hard physical labor, not typical for the nobility, who were usually given a place in the pyramids. This may indicate that pyramid tombs were used not only for the burial of the elite, but also for workers or highly skilled craftsmen. The discovery was made in Tombos, an archaeological complex in what is now Sudan, along the Nile. After the conquest of Nubia around 1500 BC, this region became an important Egyptian colonial center. The ruins of at least 5 clay pyramids were discovered here, containing human remains and a variety of ceramics, vessels, vases, and burial cones. What was especially interesting was that the skeletons were different. Some belonged to people with an office life, others with a physically active one. Scientists suggest that the burial of workers together with representatives of the nobility could symbolize their service after death. Mongoose statue from ancient Egypt. This artifact is not only a fascinating find, but also a mystical one. In ancient Egyptian mythology, the mongoose was associated with the divine powers of light and protection. In Heliopolis, the center of the cult of the sun god Ra, the mongoose symbolized the victory of light over darkness. According to myths, the god Ra, taking the form of a mongoose, fought Apophis, the serpent of chaos, who threatened the solar boat. This bronze statue with a solar disk on its head symbolizes solar energy and immortality. Such artifacts were often placed in temples or used in rituals to protect against evil. Interestingly, some researchers suggest that the mongoose, with its ability to hunt snakes, also symbolized the ability to overcome difficulties and defeat enemies, both spiritual and physical. Many such figurines were found in tombs, where they probably served as amulets to help the souls of the dead overcome dangers in the afterlife. Mongooses, which became part of sacred Egyptian symbolism, remain a reminder of the deep connections between nature, religion, and the spiritual philosophy of this ancient people. Tunnels under the pyramids. Under the Pyramid of Khafre in Egypt, archaeologists have announced the discovery of a mysterious system of underground structures. A study conducted using radar equipment revealed the presence of 5 identical structures with sloping roofs and 8 deep wells, each of which goes 648 meters into the ground. All of them, according to the researchers, are connected by 2 rooms about 80 meters wide. The total length of the underground complex, according to preliminary data, exceeds 1.9 kilometers. Scientists assume that the structures were created artificially, but their purpose remains unknown. Some are already calling it an underground city that can change our understanding of the scale of the buildings of ancient Egypt. However, not all experts agree with such bold conclusions. Professor Lawrence Conyers, an expert in ground-penetrating radar, expressed doubt about the reliability of the data. According to him, modern technology does not allow us to look underground to such a depth with the accuracy necessary for such statements. He urged caution and believed that the discovery could only be confirmed through actual excavations. Pyramid of the oldest civilization. The Norte Chico culture, also known as Caral-Supe, is considered one of the oldest and most advanced civilizations of the Andes. It existed about 5,000 years ago and achieved significant advances in architecture, agriculture, and social organization. Archaeologists recently discovered a pyramidal structure about a kilometer from the sacred city of Caral-Supe in the Supe Valley, Peru. The structure is a quadrangular building with a wide staircase leading to the top. Its walls are decorated with massive vertical stones, huancas, which may have had not only structural but also ritual significance. In addition to the pyramid, the researchers found 12 public and ceremonial buildings located around a central plaza of almost 39 hectares. This indicates the existence of a small urban center with administrative and religious functions. 3 platforms were identified in the pyramid, which indicates a complex architectural tradition of the Caral civilization. At the Chupatzigaro site, archaeologists also discovered a unique geoglyph, made in the Sechina style. It depicts a human profile and is likely associated with rituals reflecting access to the region's marine and agricultural resources. Fabric dyed with insects. Scientists have examined fragments of dyed fabric found in the Israeli Skulls Cave. These pieces of textiles date back to the Middle Bronze Age. The scientists' research has shown that the dye for the fabric was made from dried insects, Mediterranean kermes. Even in ancient times, people learned to make paints from living creatures. In the Mediterranean, the most expensive dye was purple, obtained from the secretion of the glands of sea mollusks. Another valuable red dye was made from dried female scale insects, such as the Mediterranean kermes, which live on oak trees. Written evidence of the use of such dyes is found in cuneiform texts from the Nutsi Archive and the Old Testament. Archaeologists have also found kermes in Neolithic vessels in France, although they were most likely used for magical or medicinal purposes. The earliest fragments of textiles dyed with kermes come from ancient salt mines in Austria from 1400–400 BC. Kermes was also used to dye the legendary Pazyryk carpet in Altai. Image of a car on an ancient temple. The Sagara Madu temple, also known as Pura Dalim Jagaraga, is located in the north of Bali, 11 kilometers east of the city of Singaraja. The temple is located in the village of Jagaraga, known for the tragic event of 1849, when during the Dutch colonization there was a mass ritual suicide of local residents. The temple was originally built in the 12th century during the reign of King Raj Sri Aji Jagaraga, but was later destroyed during the Dutch invasion. Restoration of the temple began in 1865, and its current appearance has largely been preserved since then. The temple complex includes 2 temples, Pura Dalim, dedicated to Shiva, and Pura Prajapat, dedicated to Durga, reflecting their mythological roles as consorts in Hinduism. The walls of the temple are decorated with carvings depicting leaves, flowers, nagas, snake-like creatures, and human figures. Pura Dalim Sagara Madu is associated with rituals of death and destruction, as it is dedicated to Shiva. In the central courtyard, there is a carved gate called Paduraksa, decorated with the head of the mythical creature Bahoma, as well as pavilions for preparing offerings and performing rituals. This temple is unique in that its walls are decorated with scenes from the Western world, such as an airplane falling into the sea, a ship being attacked by a sea monster, and an antique car. Such images appeared because Singaraja was the main seaport of Bali in the 19th and 20th centuries, through which contact with European civilization took place. A separate form of life. Scientists are once again revising their views on one of the most mysterious inhabitants of the ancient Earth, the Prototaxides organism. For a long time, it was considered a giant mushroom, but a new study has cast doubt on even this version. According to paleontologists, Prototaxides was neither a plant nor a mushroom nor an animal. It may have been a separate, completely extinct branch of the tree of life. These strange creatures lived about 420–375 million years ago and were the first giants on land. Some of them reached 8 meters in height and 1 meter in width. They were first discovered in the 19th century, and for a long time they were considered the remains of ancient trees. Later, in 2007, researchers suggested that they were mushrooms. This was indicated by chemical analyses showing that Prototaxides fed on organic matter, like modern mushrooms. However, a new study based on a Prototaxides titi fossil found in Scotland has produced opposite results. Scientists have found that these organisms lack chitin, a key component of fungal cells, but have substances similar to lignin, which is typical for plants but has a different structure. Prototaxites had a unique structure. Their body consisted of various tubes that are not similar to mushrooms. No modern creature combines these properties: complex multicellularity, a specific chemical composition, and a method of nutrition. Researchers believe that it could have been a representative of a previously unknown group of eukaryotes, organisms with a nucleus in their cells. Why prototaxites disappeared is still a mystery. Perhaps they were displaced by more efficient plants or fungi that occupied their ecological niche. Prototaxites remains a mysterious reminder of how strange and diverse life was at the dawn of the development of Earth's ecosystems.
Production of prehistoric weapons. Archaeologists from the Israel Antiquities Authority have revealed amazing finds from En Esher and En Zipporah dating back to 5,800–4,500 BC. They discovered hundreds of sling stones that amazed researchers with their identical sizes. All of them were 52 millimeters long, about 32 millimeters wide, and weighed 60 grams. Experts believe that this indicates large-scale weapons production in the southern Levant region. The stones had a biconical shape, ensuring accuracy and efficiency of throwing. This is the first time that so many stones have been discovered in one place, indicating joint preparation for conflict and a transition from individual to mass production of weapons during the Chalcolithic period.
Multi-component poison. In South Africa, archaeologists have made a surprising discovery in the Kruger Cave. They found a bone case about 7,500 years old, which contained the remains of bone arrowheads and traces of a complex multi-component poison. Analysis showed that ancient hunters used powerful cardiotoxins such as digitoxin and strophanthodin, as well as ricinoleic acid, indicating the presence of ricin. These substances indicate a high level of knowledge of the tribes in creating poisons. Such mixtures were used to hunt large animals, protect against enemies, and in rituals to attract good luck. Creating poisons was a painstaking process, and the secrets of their production were carefully guarded and passed down through generations. Kruger Cave, where people lived as far back as 10,000 years ago, reveals new details about their way of life. This discovery highlights how adaptive knowledge helped them survive in harsh conditions and maintain a balance with nature.
German bunker in the Arctic. In the north of the Kola Peninsula in the harsh Arctic tundra, there is a half-ruined German bunker from World War II. Officially, it is an ordinary military facility built during the Nazi occupation of the part of the northern USSR. However, over time, legends began to emerge around it. Local residents and ufologists claim that this was not just a supply base. Allegedly, this place was one of the secret strongholds of the Third Reich, where the Germans took out equipment, artifacts, and conducted mysterious research. In some versions, up to experiments with anti-gravity and interdimensional transitions. Particular attention was drawn to the bunker by its anomalous activity. Equipment near it fails, compasses go crazy, and tourists report strange lights in the sky. In the 90s, expeditions even came here. Not only historians, but also esotericists. There is a hypothesis that the object is connected with the legendary Base 211 inches, supposedly a secret Nazi refuge in Antarctica. Only in this case, an Arctic branch. Of course, there is no scientific evidence for this, but the fact remains, around an ordinary-looking bunker, an almost mythical story has grown up, which still excites minds.
Mysterious drink in a jug. The oldest distilled alcohol in China, dating back more than 3,000 years, has been found. This rare liquid, found in a bronze vessel from the Yuan Dynasty, proves that distillation technology appeared in China much earlier than previously thought. The owl-shaped vessel was found in 2010 in Tomb M 257 in Daxinzhuang, Shandong Province. Due to corrosion, it was impossible to open immediately. It was not until 2024, after careful restoration, that researchers were able to look inside. To their surprise, the vessel contained a clear liquid, which was preserved thanks to the tight seal. Analysis in a lab at Shandong University confirmed that it was distilled liquor. It did not contain the sugars and organic acids characteristic of fermented wine, but had a neutral pH of 5.8. This distinguishes it from previously known alcoholic beverages from the Neolithic and Zhou dynasties. He disappeared 100 years ago. The remains of a climber who disappeared on Everest in 1924 have been found. We are talking about Andrew Sandy Irvin, who tried to conquer the summit with George Mallory. Irvin's family did not know about his fate for a long time, and the discovery brought them relief. A crew filming a documentary for National Geographic came across a boot during the melting of the glacier. Experts assumed that it belonged to Irvine. Relatives lost hope that his tracks would be found. For them, Uncle Sandy has always remained a family hero about whom they spoke with trepidation. Irvine was only 22 years old, and it is believed that he had a camera with undeveloped film, which could have contained photographs from the summit. Now, Irvine's family has given a DNA sample to confirm the identity of the remains found. A sock found in a shoe had a name tag with his name on it, A.C. Irvine. Irvine and Mallory were last seen alive on June 8, 1924. Mallory's body was not discovered until 1999.
Archer's grave. While laying a new power line in Germany, archaeologists stumbled upon a rare find, an ancient burial site about 4,500 years old. Hidden in the ground near the town of Forderstedt was a whole burial ground of 10 graves belonging to the Bell Beaker culture, which existed during the Copper Age. The researchers were particularly interested in 3 well-preserved graves, which, according to scientists, contain warriors, probably archers. All 3 bodies were buried in a characteristic pose, on their sides with their faces turned to the east. This rite was typical of the Bell Beaker culture, so named because of the ceramic vessels in the shape of an inverted bell, which were often placed in graves. It was believed that food in such vessels would help on the journey to the afterlife. In one of the found vessels, archaeologists even found remains of food after thousands of years. A particularly interesting find in one of the graves was a stone elbow pad, about 8 centimeters long. This is a protective part of an archer's equipment so that the bowstring does not hit the arm when shooting. In another grave, arrowheads and a barely noticeable trace of a quiver were found. The quiver itself was probably rotten, but its shape was determined by the color changes in the sediment. Although such finds may indicate a military past of the deceased, the role of hunters cannot be ruled out. Perhaps these people were both warriors and food gatherers at the same time.
The painful death of the Screaming Woman. In 1935, a mysterious mummy was found near Luxor, Egypt, dubbed the Screaming Woman because of her horrific open-mouthed expression. Scientists believe that the woman may have died from extreme pain leading to cadaveric spasm, which fixed her face in a scream. The mummy was discovered by an archaeological expedition from the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York City in the tomb of Sinmut, the chief architect of Queen Hatshepsut. The tomb also contained a burial chamber for his mother and other relatives. Despite the rich burial, the identity of the Screaming Woman and the reason for her facial expressions remained a mystery for almost a century. Archaeologists conducted a detailed study of the mummy using CT scanning and infrared photography. A virtual autopsy revealed that the woman was about 48 years old, stood about 150 centimeters tall, and suffered from mild arthritis. Remarkably, her internal organs, such as her brain, heart, and lungs, were intact, which was not consistent with the usual mummification practices of the New Kingdom. Her burial included a black wig made of date palm fibers treated with minerals and 2 rings with jasper scarabs, indicating her high social status. Dr. Salem suggested that her facial expression may have been the result of cadaveric spasm, a rare condition in which muscles used heavily before death freeze, indicating possible suffering or extreme stress. The embalmers mummified her body before it began to decompose or relax, keeping her mouth open. Immortality of Greenland sharks. There has been an unexpected twist in the case of Greenland sharks, famous for their longevity, which may provide a clue to the mystery of longevity not only of these fish, but also of people. These sharks, which live in the cold waters of the Atlantic and Arctic seas, can live up to 500 years. One of the oldest sharks, which was born around 1624, is older than Peter the Great. Scientists from the University of Copenhagen determined its age using carbon dating. Despite the fact that Greenland sharks are rare due to their habit of living at depths of several hundred meters, scientists are actively studying them to understand the secret of their longevity. Previous studies have shown that a slow metabolism plays a key role. The pace of life theory suggests that life expectancy is directly dependent on the speed of metabolic processes in the body. However, recent data indicate the importance of habitat. Greenland sharks live in cold waters where the temperature can drop to -1.8 degrees Celsius. Living in such conditions slows down all chemical and biological reactions in their bodies, which may explain their immortality. In addition, they live in depths where there are practically no natural enemies except humans. Professor Holly Shields from the University of Manchester believes that the isolated environment also contributes to their longevity. The metabolism of these sharks remains stable throughout their lives, which is not typical for most animals. Scientists did not find significant changes in the metabolic activity of their muscle tissue with age. In the future, the study of shark tissue at the Arctic University of Norway should help to understand how climate change and pollution affect marine life in the long term.
The mystery of the ancient spheres. Scientists have uncovered the secret of the mysterious stone spheres found in East Africa. For a long time, it was believed that these were simply natural formations, but a new study has shown that these are actually some of the first universal tools used by ancient people. In the Upper Awash Valley in the Melka Kuntur area of Ethiopia, archaeologists have discovered more than 30 spherical stones made of basalt. Their age ranges from 600,000 to 1.7 million years. Along with them, they found thousands of other stone tools, as well as hominid bones, from Homo ergaster to Homo sapiens. All this suggests that these places were actively used by ancient people for a very long time. Research by paleoanthropologist Margarita Musi has shown that the basalt balls were not used by chance. The surface of many of them is covered with traces of blows, which indicates that they were used as hammers or crushing tools. Moreover, the stones were selected based on weight, shape, and hardness. Strong ones were used for processing other stones, softer ones were used for working with plants or food. Lost Bible text. Archaeologists have found a unique 5th century amulet in Turkey depicting King Solomon defeating the devil. The 1,600-year-old bronze pendant is engraved with the ancient Greek inscription, "Our Lord has defeated the devil." This artifact may be related to a lost Bible text that speaks of Solomon's magical powers. Sources claim that during the 1st–5th centuries, there was a text called the Testament of Solomon, which was not included in the canon. In this text, Archangel Michael gives Solomon a magic ring that allows him to control demons. The amulet confirms that Solomon was perceived not only as a wise king, but also as a champion of evil. The artifact was discovered among the ruins of an ancient military structure in Adrianople, modern Edirne. The amulet probably belonged to a soldier who believed in Solomon's magical protection. The reverse side of the pendant is engraved with the names of the archangels, Azrael, Israfel, Gabriel, and Michael. This symbolizes protection from evil, uniting the traditions of different religions. Azrael is known as the angel of death in Judaism and Islam. Israfel is the herald of the end of the world, blowing the trumpet on the day of judgment. Gabriel and Michael are widely revered in Christianity. The first is the messenger of God, the second is a spiritual warrior. All these names enhance the protective meaning of the amulet. The amulet with Solomon is not just a historical find, it demonstrates how legends and religious traditions intertwine in different eras. The figure of Solomon unites 3 world religions, remaining a symbol of wisdom and strength. Proof of a parallel universe. A group of physicists from the United States and Switzerland have announced a possible discovery that could change our understanding of reality. Researchers have recorded strange quantum deviations in a particle accelerator that do not fit into the framework of classical physics. In their opinion, such anomalies could be the first hint of the existence of parallel worlds. One of the leading participants in the project suggested that we could be talking about the so-called shadow universe, an invisible reality that imperceptibly interacts with ours at the level of subatomic particles. While this data does not provide 100% confirmation, the very fact of such observations has caused a strong reaction in the scientific community. If the hypothesis is confirmed, this could be a real breakthrough. Humanity will come closer to understanding the multidimensionality of the universe, and in the future, to creating technologies for moving between dimensions. So far, all this sounds like science fiction, but such ideas are no longer pure theory. Previously, scientists Paolo Bassani and João Maguajo also expressed the opinion that the structure of the universe and the very fact of its existence may be closer to the biblical description than to the traditional scientific model. It seems that the border between science and metaphysics is gradually blurring. Ancient cemetery of trade caravans. Archaeologists have made an important discovery in the Negev highlands.
a 2,500-year-old ancient burial site that sheds light on trade routes of the ancient world. The artifacts found confirmed that the region was an important hub linking southern Arabia, Phoenicia, Egypt, and the Mediterranean. The excavations revealed the tombs of traders who crossed the desert, including merchants who carried frankincense, myrrh, and valuable goods. Among the finds were arrowheads from Yemen, jewelry, rare shells, and tools for processing frankincense. Of particular interest is the amulet of the Egyptian god Be. Its presence may indicate human trafficking in ancient times, as is confirmed by historical records of the Minutes merchants from Yemen who acquired women in Egypt, Gaza, and Greece. The burial site is located at a strategic crossroads of ancient routes leading through the desert. Large-scale horse burials. French archaeologists recently made a surprising discovery in Villiers-sur-Indre, discovering 9 large burials containing the remains of horses that lived about 2,000 years ago. The burials contain 28 horses, carefully placed on their right sides with their heads facing south. The remains of 2 dogs were found nearby with their heads facing west. These finds date back to the period of the Gallic Wars, approximately between 100 BC and 100 AD, when Julius Caesar was actively engaged in military operations. The burials attracted the attention of archaeologists for their features. The horses, only 1.2 meters tall, were typical of Gallic breeds. The method of their burial was similar to those previously found in other regions of France, indicating a possible ritual or ceremonial nature. Interestingly, all the horses found were adults, which rules out common diseases as the cause of their death. Scientists from France's National Institute for Preventive Archaeological Research are analyzing the bones to determine whether the horses died in battle or were part of an elaborate ritual. To solve the mystery, researchers took DNA samples from the bones and surrounding sediments to determine whether the horses were Gallic or used by Roman units. An idol with a broken arm. On the Petta Rushikonda beach in India, nature has presented an unexpected find, an ancient granite statue of the god Vishnu washed ashore. The height of the artifact is about a meter, and experts estimate that its age may be up to 700 years. The statue is split into 2 parts, and one of the arms is damaged in 2 places at once. The uniqueness of the find is not only in its preservation but also in the material. At that time, most statues in the region were made of condylite, a local stone, but this sculpture is carved from granite, which is already a rarity. This may indicate a special status of the idol or its origin from another area. Vishnu is one of the main deities of the Hindu pantheon, the patron and guardian of the world. He is often depicted with 4 hands holding symbolic objects. The broken arm of this statue, experts believe, once held a shankha, a seashell symbolizing the divine sound of creation and a call to virtue. Most likely, the statue once stood in a temple and then, according to ancient tradition, was ritually sent into the water after being damaged, as was often done with destroyed sacred images. Perhaps the sea returned it to the land again, reminding us of long-forgotten stories. Oldest working compass. Archaeologists from the Estonian Maritime Museum have revealed details of recent finds at the excavation site of a medieval merchant ship in Tallinn. The ship, discovered a year ago, is perfectly preserved and reveals the secrets of the past. A particularly valuable find was one of the oldest magnetic compasses in Europe with a dry card, which is unique since the sensitive elements of compasses are usually in liquid. Also found on board were antique tools, worn leather shoes, a wooden spoon, and the remains of 2 ship rats, which were surprisingly well preserved. The remains of the ship were found near the Estonian Harjapea River. At first, it was assumed that these were the remains of a cog, the main Hanseatic merchant ship, but the presence of a second mast indicates a possible transitional type between the cog and the hulk. Funeral packages and masks. In Peru, at the archaeological site of Pachacamac near Lima, more than 70 funerary bundles from the Huari culture, dating back to around 200 AD, were found. These finds reveal the secrets of ancient civilization. Pachacamac, rich in pyramids, plazas, and cemeteries, preserves the history of the Huari people. Researchers discovered funeral bundles from 800 and 1100 AD near the temple. They contain unique masks carved from wood and ceramics, which were typical for rituals. Archaeologists also found staffs with images of Huari decorated with shells from Ecuador. These objects are associated with the staff god, important to the spiritual life of the Wari. These discoveries are important for understanding the cultural and religious world of the ancient Andes and their funerary traditions. Aliens called home. Former U.S. counterintelligence agent Luis Elizondo has made another big statement. According to him, some UFOs observed by the military clearly have engraved symbols resembling ancient writing. These signs, he claims, could be an attempt by aliens to convey information or even instructions. Elizondo previously headed the secret AATIP program, which studied aerospace threats. He says that he personally saw oval objects with an unusual surface on which symbols similar to hieroglyphs or runes were engraved. He believes that such things are not applied just like that. This is part of communication. Interestingly, some of these symbols are similar in appearance to ancient writings found on Earth. According to him, the Pentagon has long been comparing these signs with ancient alphabets, trying to find matches. Perhaps aliens use a universal visual language, which means that we have more in common than it seems. Elizondo even mentioned the phrase, "they've already called home," hinting at attempts to communicate with other worlds. Elizondo's testimony is confirmed by other eyewitnesses. Military pilot Jake Barber said he saw an object of non-human origin just 150 feet away from him. Later, he was allegedly lifted aboard a helicopter. Elizondo is sure that there are many such devices, and U.S. intelligence has been studying them for a long time, including fragments, microchips, and even biomaterials. He calls on the authorities to disclose this data and begin an honest dialogue with society. A chest of gold and concrete. During renovations at a villa in Vienna, workers discovered an incredible treasure. Under the concrete floor of the basement, they found a chest with 30 kilograms of gold Mozart coins. Their value is estimated at 2.3 million euros. The first to notice the mysterious cord sticking out of the concrete was a builder, but he decided not to touch it. Later, a plumber showed up on the scene, became interested in the find, and dug up the metal box. Now, according to Austrian law, he is entitled to a third of the treasure and possibly half, because the rest will go to the owner of the house. It is believed that the gold was hidden in the concrete before World War II. For the plumber, this was a real success, but the builder, who missed the chance, was clearly unlucky. Tried to treat cancer. A study of 2 ancient skulls yielded surprising results. They showed signs of cancer and traces of attempts to treat it. These findings show that the ancient Egyptians knew about cancer and tried to fight it. Signs of this disease included severe tissue destruction and small metastases. Particularly interesting are the cut marks around the lesions, suggesting that the Egyptians may have attempted to remove the tumors surgically. The ancient Egyptians were famous for their medical knowledge. They knew how to treat fractures, treat injuries, make prosthetics, and even fill teeth. However, their ability to treat cancer was limited. Scientists studied 2 skulls from the Duckworth collection at the University of Cambridge. One skull belonged to a 35-year-old man with signs of cancer and surgical interventions. The other skull belonged to a woman over 50 years old with cancerous lesions and signs of healed injuries. The researchers stressed that studying ancient remains is fraught with difficulties, with incomplete skeletons and a lack of clinical history making conclusions difficult. However, these findings provide new insights into ancient medical practices and highlight the need for further research in paleontology. Billionaire accused of trying to hide UFOs. British ufologist and filmmaker Mark Christopher Lee has made a big statement. According to him, evidence of the existence of aliens has already been obtained, but is being carefully hidden from the public. At the center of this story is Facebook founder Mark Zuckerberg, who, according to Lee, is funding a SETI research project called Breakthrough Listen. It was this program, which searches for extraterrestrial signals, that 2 years ago recorded a strange radio signal coming from the Proxima Centauri system, the closest star system to us, located just 4.2 light-years from Earth. Initially, it was explained as ordinary satellite interference. However, Professor Simon Holland, a former BBC science editor and NASA consultant, refuted this version. According to him, the signal has all the signs of extraterrestrial origin. Researchers from Cambridge have allegedly already discovered signs of biological activity on an exoplanet in this system, but have not yet published the data due to possible political consequences. There is a fear that if the information is released too early, it could spark panic or an international race to make contact. Holland and Lee believe that the dissemination of such data is tightly controlled, and it is possible that scientists in China or Russia could try to make such information public first. Lacquer coffin. In 2018, archaeologists discovered a unique 700-year-old lacquer coffin from the Yuan Dynasty in China's Jiangsu province. Its bright red surface was perfectly preserved thanks to a multi-layered lacquer coating that protected the wood from moisture and decay. Lacquer coffins were a symbol of high status in China, and their creation required complex technologies. The lacquer was applied in several layers and then polished to a shine. This method of preservation allowed the coffin to survive centuries with virtually no damage. The find is also important because the Yuan dynasty left relatively few burials, and this coffin can tell us a lot about the funeral traditions of that time. Aliens on the walls. Archaeologists working at the Sagara Nature Reserve in Tanzania made the astonishing discovery of 52 previously unknown rock shelters in 2018, many of which contained ancient rock art. However, most of the drawings were lost due to weathering. Of those that have survived, the most interesting were the anthropomorphic figures with unusually large heads. Particularly noteworthy was the shelter, called Amaki 4. On its walls, scientists discovered a well-preserved frieze depicting anthropomorphic creatures with buffalo heads. These drawings may be key to understanding similar figures found elsewhere. Dating the Amaki Panel 4 has proven challenging, but it is believed to be at least several hundred years old. The walls of the shelter are painted red with the exception of 5 white figures. Based on the weathering of the pigment and the lack of depictions of domestic animals, scientists suggest that the drawings may be very ancient and date back to the hunter-gatherer period. Interestingly, similar figures with large heads were found in other rock shelters in the Kondoa region. In all images, the figures have the same placement and direction of their hands, although with some differences in detail. This suggests that such figures played an important role in the culture of the ancient inhabitants of this region. Scientists are turning to the Sandawa culture of the region for answers to these mysterious paintings. Some rock paintings are still used by local people for rituals, which can help in revealing their meanings. 33 miners from Chile. The year 2010 went down in the history of Chile not only as a year of terrible tragedy, but also as a time of amazing endurance, solidarity, and courage. On August 5th, a collapse occurred in the San Jose copper-gold mine, cutting off the exit for 33 miners. At a depth of 688 meters in complete darkness, with limited supplies of food and water, these people were forced to fight for survival. The first 17 days after the collapse were the hardest. On the surface, no one knew whether the miners survived or not. However, below, despite extremely limited resources, the miners managed to remain hopeful and cooperate for the common good. They distributed among themselves the remaining food, which barely lasted for several days, so that everyone could get at least a small portion. When rescuers managed to drill a hole to the blocked miners and establish communication, the world breathed a sigh of relief. From now on, food, water, and medical supplies were delivered to the miners through this well. The entire rescue process lasted 69 days and required a lot of technical innovation. This operation became a real miracle of engineering, as well as an example of an unbending will to live. When the last of the miners was brought to the surface, it was a moment of national unity for Chile and an inspiring event for the world, the triumph of the human spirit over the difficulties and tribulations of life. The 2010 San Jose mine event reminded the world of the value of every human life and the need to remain hopeful and believe in the best, even in the most critical situations.
Ring and human fingers. Not far from ancient Corinth, in the village of Chiliomodi in the Peloponnese, archaeologists have made an amazing discovery: a large tomb from the Hellenistic period, which over time turned into a sanctuary. The tomb, built between 323 and 30 BC, has the shape of an elongated letter T. The central burial chamber, about 7.4 meters long and almost 3 meters wide, was closed with a stone slab resembling a door. Inside, the researchers found a sarcophagus with the remains of a woman, 5 rectangular stone boxes, and many valuable artifacts. Of particular interest was the gold signet ring with the image of Apollo, next to which is a snake, an ancient symbol of healing, which later became the
the emblem of medicine. Next to it were found gold leaves from a funeral wreath, coins, perfume bottles, beads, and small metal objects. The tomb was used for centuries. During the Roman period, between about 250 and 450 AD, it became a place of worship. Outside, archaeologists have found clay anatomical offerings, fingers and part of a hand that pilgrims probably left behind to pray for miraculous healing. The risen Telamon. This unique Atlantean from the Temple of Zeus in the ancient city of Agrigento in Sicily is one of the most impressive examples of monumental sculpture of the 5th century BC. The temple, built in the Doric style, was considered one of the largest temples of the ancient world, and its architecture reflected the power of Greek civilization. The telamons, which acted as supports, had a symbolic meaning depicting the titanic force supporting the sky or the enormous weight of an architectural structure. These giant statues, about 7.5 meters high, were impressive both in their detail and size. One of the telamons was restored and installed in its original place, demonstrating the complexity of the engineering and artistic solutions of the ancient masters. But there are myths and mysteries surrounding the Atlanteans. Some researchers believe that the images of the Titans could reflect ancient myths about the confrontation between the gods and giants, and their position in the temple symbolized their conquest. Others believe that such sizes and shapes could have been used as images of extraterrestrial beings, which the ancient inhabitants believed in. Advanced construction technology. Archaeologists in Denmark have made a major discovery at a 5,000-year-old settlement. They have uncovered a stone-paved cellar, which shows a significant advance in ancient Scandinavian construction technology. The find was made at the Nygårdsvej 3 site, where the remains of several funnel beaker houses were also found. These houses had internal pillars supporting the roof, and the floors were likely made of a mixture of sand and clay, a material known as loam, which is still used today. The site was strategically chosen. It was located on high ground, which provided protection from flooding and a good view of the area. Around the underground stone structure, archaeologists also found about 1,000 artifacts, including flint tools, pottery shards, and sea urchin fossils. The researchers suggest that the underground structure served as a food storage facility thanks to its stable temperature. This could be one of the oldest cellars in Europe used as a refrigerator to preserve resources. If further research confirms this, the find will be important evidence of a technological leap in ancient Europe. Britain's most important discovery. In the north of England, archaeologists have made a truly remarkable discovery, which is already being called one of the most significant for understanding the Iron Age in Britain. We are talking about the so-called Melsonby Hoard. More than 800 objects found near the village of Melsonby in the county of Richmond, North Yorkshire. These artifacts were buried about 2,000 years ago, in the 1st century AD, and according to scientists belong to a representative of the Celtic elite, perhaps even a ruler. Among the finds, 2 massive cauldrons, horse harness, bridles, ceremonial spears, dozens of iron parts from wheels, and rare objects decorated with coral. All this, according to experts, indicates incredible wealth for that time. Moreover, many things were deliberately damaged, broken or burned as part of a ritual, possibly a funeral one. Although no human remains were found at the site, the nature of the hoard suggests a symbolic burial, a demonstration of status, power, and wealth. Previously, it was believed that the Iron Age elite in Britain was concentrated in the south. However, this find proves that there were also powerful and wealthy people in the north who actively interacted with continental Europe and even the Roman Empire. This discovery is unique not only for Britain but for the whole of Europe. The scale of the ritual destruction of valuables indicates the incredible power and influence of the owner of the hoard, possibly the leader of the Brigantes tribe, one of the largest in ancient Britain. Ring with a hologram. This unusual Roman ring, found in the tomb of the noblewoman Aebutia Quarta, dates back to the 1st century AD. Its unique feature is the hologram effect created by a masterfully engraved portrait, presumably of her son Titus Carvilius Gemello. Titus, according to historical data, died at the age of 18, and the ring probably served as a tribute and symbol of his mother's grief. The ring is made of gold, and the stone set in the frame is perfectly polished and contains a miniature image. This portrait is unusual for that time. The details of the face look so realistic that they create the impression of a three-dimensional image, as if looking out from the depths of the stone. This technique of execution was incredibly complex, indicating the highest level of skill of ancient Roman jewelers. But the ring also raises mystical questions. Some believe that its owner could have used it as an amulet connecting her with the spirit of her son, perhaps for advice or protection. The mystery of the artifact is enhanced by the fact that very few similar engravings with this effect have been found, and it is still unclear how such a striking optical illusion was achieved. 11 bottles of whiskey on the beach. During a routine walk along the beach in the Atlantic City area, a poodle named Teddy unexpectedly became an archaeologist. He dug an old bottle of cloudy liquid out of the sand. His owner, 28-year-old lifeguard Austin, at first thought that there was a common nasty thing from vacationers inside. But after taking a closer look, he realized that the bottle was sealed and clearly old. While he was examining the find, Teddy dug up another one, and another. In total, the dog dug up 11 bottles. Each had a sticker with the inscription Hotel Lincoln. As it turned out later, this was whiskey produced at a Canadian distillery in the late 1920s, early 30s. It was at the height of the American Prohibition, when alcohol was prohibited and smugglers were actively transporting alcohol across the border. Judging by the corks and markings on the bottom, the whiskey had been lying in the sand for almost a century. Now Austin is considering whether to keep the find for himself or give it to the museum. In any case, the story of the treasure-hunting dog has already made the rounds in the American media.
Magic circles in the desert. For decades, scientists have puzzled over the origins of circular patches of grass in the Namibian desert that appear and disappear seemingly for no reason. Now it seems the mystery has been solved. These so-called magic circles with a diameter of 2 to 10 meters form an amazing pattern on the surface of one of the driest places on Earth. For a long time, their origin remained a mystery. There were two main theories. One associated the circles with the activity of termites. The second suggested the self-organization of grass to combat drought. Recently, scientists from the University of Göttingen in Germany proposed a new theory. They believe that the circles can form due to extremely rare and irregular precipitation. This causes the grass to grow at the edges of the circles, leaving the center lifeless since it is the roots of the grass, extending to great depths, that allow the plants to survive and thrive in conditions of low water. This discovery not only reveals the mystery of Namibia's magical circles, but also demonstrates nature's amazing ability to organize itself and adapt to changing environmental conditions. Trilobites may reveal the history of the ancient world. Trilobites, ancient marine arthropods, disappeared from the face of the Earth about 250 million years ago, but their fossils continue to reveal the secrets of the ancient world. Scientists from Thailand have discovered 10 new species of trilobites in the Ko Tarutau region, dating back to the late Cambrian era about 490 million years ago. One of the species was even named after the Thai princess Maha Chakri Sirindorn. These fossils were found in tuff, a rock formed by a volcanic eruption. Scientists used radioisotope techniques to analyze the zircon contained in the tuff and determined the age of these layers to be 485 million years. These finds are key to understanding the Cambrian era, which until now has remained poorly understood. In addition, 12 more species of trilobites already known in other parts of the world but found for the first time in Thailand were discovered, providing new information about the history of the ancient supercontinent Gondwana. Tuff analysis not only helps determine the age of fossils, but can also provide new insights into the history of other regions, including China, Australia, and North America. According to geologist Shelley Wernett, these fossils are a record of evolutionary change that allows us to better understand the processes taking place on the planet today. Boy in a bubble. There are stories in the world of medicine that make us think about human resilience, courage, and the endless pursuit of life. One such story is the life of David Vetter, a boy who became known to the world as the boy in the bubble. David was born on September 21, 1971, with a severe immune system disorder known as SCID, severe combined immunodeficiency. As a result of this disease, his body was unable to resist infections.
Any disease, even a cold, could be fatal for him. To protect David from the outside world and potential infections, doctors created a special sterile bubble, an isolated room where the boy could live without contact with the outside world. Everything that came into his bubble underwent strict sterilization. For most people, the idea of living in complete isolation sounds like a nightmare, but for David, it was the only way to survive. Despite his isolation, he was an inquisitive, educated, and cheerful boy. His family, doctors, and teachers interacted with him through special gloves and screens, providing him with education and social interaction. However, isolation left its mark on David's psychological state. He experienced loneliness, stress, and depression, dreaming of one day leaving his bubble and living a full life. In 1984, at the age of 12, David left the bubble due to a medical procedure to treat his condition. Unfortunately, the procedure did not bring the expected result, and a few months later, David passed away. Atlantis at the bottom of the Caribbean. June 5th, 8,500 years ago, time 1 p.m. Suddenly, out of nowhere, a mountain-sized asteroid crashes into the Earth. Boom! And its 5 billion tons heat the waters of the Atlantic to a boil. According to one scientist from Germany, this is how the death of Atlantis happened. A lost civilization, which they say was flooded by waves of a giant shaft as high as Mount Everest. The crash site is now called the Bermuda Triangle. Previously, scientists thought that Atlantis was somewhere in the Caribbean near the island of Bimini. They said that the Atlanteans were so smart that they even knew how to create crystals of fire for energy. But it seems that one of these crystals exploded and led to the death of civilization. Skeptics, of course, will say that all this is nonsense. But what about the numerous underwater finds, such as strange pyramids and marble buildings? 1,500-year-old relic. Archaeologists from Innsbruck have discovered a rare ivory reliquary in an early Christian church in Eerie, southern Austria. This unique artifact, which is about 1,500 years old, is a box measuring approximately 20 by 30 centimeters, decorated with Christian symbols. A team of archaeologists led by Gerald Grabherr has been excavating the region since 2016. On August 4, 2022, they found the reliquary under the altar in the side chapel of the church. Although the artifact was damaged, researchers were able to identify it as a pyx, a round ivory container richly decorated with Christian motifs. This discovery was the first of its kind in Austria. There are about 40 such chests known throughout the world, and the last one was found about 100 years ago. Most pyx are kept in cathedral treasures or displayed in museums, making this find especially valuable. Ivory lying underground absorbs moisture, becomes soft, and is susceptible to destruction. Conservation of the artifact required careful and lengthy drying to prevent shrinkage and cracks. For 2 years, fragments of the reliquary were preserved for scientific analysis. Researchers are working on a 3D reconstruction of the pyx. This process will provide a deeper understanding of the history and significance of this unique find. The deepest well in the world. Near the Nuffield Hospital in Woodingdean, near Brighton, at first glance you might not notice anything unusual. A small brick circle covered with a metal lid. But behind this unassuming appearance lies an engineering marvel of the 19th century. Woodingdean Well, the deepest hand-dug well in the world. At 390 meters deep, it has become a symbol of Victorian stubbornness and engineering tenacity. The story begins in the 1850s when the Brighton authorities decided to build a new workhouse and school for troubled youths on the top of Elm Grove Hill. To save money on connecting to the mains, they decided to dig their own well. The idea seemed simple. Dig 120 meters and water should be found. But things turned out differently. After 2 years of hard work, the water still did not appear. The contractors dug side tunnels one after another, but to no avail. Then, unwilling to give up, it was decided to go even deeper. In a narrow shaft only 1.5 meters wide, the workers toiled in incredibly difficult conditions. They installed brick cladding, breathed with the help of pipes that supplied air, and were lit by smoky candles. Heat, stuffiness, and the risk of collapse accompanied them every day. Construction costs grew. The project cost the city £90 every week, which was a huge sum at the time. And yet 4 years later, at a depth of almost 400 meters, water finally gushed. The workers had to urgently get out, and it took them 45 minutes to get up. The irony is that after such titanic efforts, the well was used for only 4 years. Soon, a more efficient water supply was installed, and the grandiose shaft lost its significance. Today, the well is closed, surrounded by a wall and securely sealed, but it still remains in its place, a reminder of the times when people were ready to dig literally to the very center of the earth for the sake of an idea. Unique musical instrument. Lviv archaeologists have discovered valuable finds dating back to the Neolithic era near Vinnytsia. It turned out that people lived here about 5,500 years ago. Excavations were carried out at an ancient fortified settlement on Mount Lisovka near the city of Vinnytsia. Representatives of the funnel-shaped pottery culture lived here. To study the settlement, scientists conducted excavations with a total area of 140 square meters. They discovered a clay pit, a place where clay was mined for making pottery and building houses. Usually such clay quarries were located on the outskirts of settlements, but here the pit was found in the center, which changes the traditional idea of the layout. The pit was also used as a dump in which archaeologists found many fragments of pottery, animal bones, and tools. Another interesting find is an egg-shaped clay device with 2 clay balls inside. The egg was considered a symbol of life in all cultures and could be used for rituals, to ward off evil spirits, or to entertain children. In fact, it is a prototype of a musical instrument that produced sounds of a certain tonality.
Fabric uterus. This unusual artifact, created by French midwife Angélique Marguerite Le Boursier du Coudray, is considered one of the world's first mannequins for teaching midwifery. In the 18th century, King Louis XV entrusted her with the task of reducing the infant mortality rate, which was critically high at the time. Angélique enthusiastically took up the task, traveled around France giving lectures, and developed a unique approach to teaching. The mannequin, which she called a maternity machine, was made life-size from fabric and other available materials. It included a uterus, placenta, umbilical cord, and a model of a baby, which allowed her to practice all stages of childbirth. The visual and practical component of her classes gave midwives of the time skills that they could immediately apply in practice. In addition, Du Coudray wrote a textbook on midwifery, which became a reference book for many generations of midwives. Her methods and approaches revolutionized 18th century medicine, and she left behind a legacy that saved thousands of lives. The mannequin you see is not just an artifact, but a symbol of life-saving science and a unique monument to the history of medicine.
Aliens appeared on Earth before humans. Researchers from Harvard and Montana Technological University have put forward a hypothesis that could radically change the idea of the place of aliens in the universe and on our planet. According to their theory, aliens arrived on Earth long before humans appeared, and instead of leaving it, decided to stay underground. This idea was called the crypto-Earth hypothesis. The authors suggest that aliens populated the Earth millions of years ago, possessing advanced technologies. With the advent of humanity, they decided to hide, perhaps so as not to interfere directly with the development of civilization. However, from time to time, they helped people with advice, technology, knowledge for which they were taken for gods. According to scientists, there is a lot of evidence for this. From mysterious artifacts and images of flying saucers on ancient engravings to structures that were impossible for their time. It is interesting that researchers consider not only the Earth's interior to be possible alien bases, but also the Moon, especially its dark side, Mars, and the depths of the oceans. The Alaska Triangle is also mentioned, where UFOs are regularly observed and mysterious disappearances of people are recorded. According to another version, aliens could have arrived on Earth on a planet ship, having left their dying star. This hypothesis explains how they overcame huge interstellar distances. They may have left their planet on the outskirts of the solar system, beyond the orbit of Pluto. Skeptics, of course, point to the lack of direct evidence, but the authors insist we still have little idea what is hidden underground, in sea trenches, and on the far side of the Moon. Perhaps intelligent life has long been nearby, it just does not want to be discovered. Whether to believe the Harvard researchers or not is up to everyone. I'm just telling you about the newest finds and interesting facts about our history, which hides a lot of interesting and incredible things from us. Thank you for watching this video to the end. Bye, everyone.